Are you ready to perform at your highest potential? Thank you for joining this GP Strategies webinar, where we'll explore best practices and innovative insights to help you and your organization improve performance.
Hello and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everyone who's joining us today. I am happy to welcome you to today's webinar discussion, Unleashing the Power of Talent Mobility with Dr. Cheryl Jackson from GP Strategies and Akash Savdharia from Bridge, which is our sister company from the LTG Group. Again, my name is Kim Heyer. I'm with GP Strategies, and I'm happy to be your host for today's session. So as you guys are getting on, I want to just let you know that we will be sending out a link to the recording following this presentation today within 24 hours of this webinar. And even though everyone's lines are muted, we always want our time together to be as interactive as possible. So we encourage you to contribute during today's webinar. And if you do have any comments during the presentation, use the chat feature to engage with our presenters as well as our attendees from today. But if you have any specific questions for our presenters, try and use the Q&A option if possible. That way we'll be able to filter out those questions and make sure that we can respond to them during today's presentation or get to them at the end of today's webinar. So again, I want to thank you all for joining today's session, and I'm really excited to introduce you to our presenters today. Dr. Cheryl Jackson is the Organizational Design and Change Practice Lead here at GP Strategies. She is an industrial organizational psychologist with 15 years of experience designing and implementing talent management solutions across a variety of industries, specializing in job design, asset management, and engagements. And we're also very fortunate to have Akash with us. He is an entrepreneurial technology executive with over 10 years of experience bringing SaaS products to market that solve impactful data-driven problems. He is the Vice President of Talent Solutions with Bridge and drives vision, growth, and strategy for skills and talent ability. Prior to Bridge, Akash was the co-founder and CEO of Pathir. You can correct me after this if I pronounced it wrong, and I apologize. An AI-powered talent marketplace to help companies grow and retain employees by empowering them to discover new career paths and opportunities internally. I want to thank everyone joining us today. And with that, we have a great session planned for you. And I'm going to pass it over to Akash and Cheryl, to you. Have a great show.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone, for being here. I'll kick us off here by just talking a little bit about the agenda, what we're going to go through. We're going to just touch on talent strategy, and then we're going to take you through a journey through talent mobility. Some of you may have heard this term before. You may have also heard other terms like internal mobility or internal movement throughout the organization. This is a piece of that talent strategy, and that's where we're going to spend most of our time, is saying, what is it? Why is it important? And what are those key elements that you really want to consider when you are evaluating your talent mobility strategy? All right, so let's get into it. To set the stage, let's start off with the talent strategy. Now, to ensure we're all on the same page and we're all speaking the same language, we are simply talking about, at a high level, this talent strategy as a holistic approach to sourcing, hiring, onboarding, engaging, and retaining your talent. But we all know that it's about much more than just talent. The talent strategy is how we meet our organization's strategic objectives, how we reflect our organizational values, and ultimately how we achieve the mission and the vision of the company. So many of us think talent strategy, that's an HR thing, but we all know in HR, it has to be a business imperative in order for them to care about it at all. And I'm going to talk a lot more about that, but I just want you to keep in mind that we're talking about more than just talent here. We're talking about reaching our organizational goals and objectives. So a strong talent strategy will help answer questions like, how will we attract talent? And what is our employee value proposition going to be? How are we going to get them, and how are we going to keep them? How will we retain that talent throughout the entire employee life cycle? And how do our recruiting and development philosophies support one another? Are they meshing nicely, or are they at odds with each other? In terms of organizational goals, a talent strategy helps support and enhance the employer brand, which helps ensure that sustainability and long-term success. It also guides and informs the performance management process, which I am super supportive of a powerful performance management process. So I throw that in every chance we get. It's not just about rewards, but it's about developing our employees throughout that full life cycle. And then it provides us with these metrics to inform and iterate and continue to improve on that talent strategy and say, are we getting the results that we want to get? So while achieving our organizational goals, like supporting the employer brand and guiding and informing the performance management data system analytics, we're also trying to make sure that our employees are getting the satisfaction and the enjoyment and all of those positive things that they want out of a company as well. And so I know we just got into it, but I want to take a quick poll here. We have a question for you just right off the bat, so we know who we're talking to. How defined is your organization's talent strategy? Would you consider it a well-defined and integrated strategy, and it's integrated throughout the organization? Everyone's on board. They know what it is. They can articulate it. Maybe it's defined, but not clearly articulated or integrated throughout. Semi-defined. Or do not have a talent strategy. And then we have the not sure for those of you like, I don't know. I don't want to say no, but I don't know what it is. How we doing? All right. Okay, so I take this over here. Can you still see it?
We have great participation in this.
Yeah. 84% looks great. Can you see the results, or did I just swipe it from your slide?
No, I'm going to end the poll and then we'll send out the results. You're good.
Okay.
Ready?
I can't tell what you can see versus what I can see by moving.
You're doing great. You're doing great. We're seeing exactly the poll results right now.
Good, good. That's what I want you to see, because what we're seeing here is that you were looking at about 4% that have this well-defined and integrated strategy throughout the organization. That's common. Most organizations do not have this well thought out, beautiful, fully integrated strategy. HR may know what it is. Talent management might know what it is. The sponsoring leader may know what it is. But throughout the organization, it's defined, but not clearly articulated throughout. That's very common, and so is semi-defined. So we're looking at that middle range. If we're looking at a bell curve, it's about a nice bell curve. A few of you are not sure, and that's fine as well. This isn't a judgment. This is just evaluating where we are. Nice, nice. Okay, well, I'm going to hit stop sharing on that. Or share results. I don't know. I'll just close it. And let's go ahead and move on to the rest of this. Thank you for your participation. That is very helpful. And you'll have 2 more opportunities to do that again. So it is good to see that so many of us are beginning to develop this talent strategy, and we are getting visibility a little bit throughout the organization. Because having a solid talent strategy is more important than ever before. I think we all know these signs. We've seen this. The changing world of work is creating an environment where employees have more control over their work conditions, and they want more control. They like this control. Being an employee myself, I can say, yes, this is true for me as well. Employees are also looking to grow within their own organizations. And according to this recent study here by Korn Ferry, internal talent mobility is about moving around, not out of the organization. That is a top talent acquisition trend in 2023. So we're starting to see more of employees wanting this lattice experience throughout their organization. They don't want to have to leave to get that experience, but they don't necessarily just want to shoot up the ladder. They want experience. They want to grow. They want to feel like they're doing something with their life and not just climbing this ladder. They want to experience that. They also want more control over that lattice work. I want to know where I'm going. I don't want you to just point and say, I think you'd be good at this role. I want to tell you what I want experience in. They want flexibility, mobility, and visibility. And if your company cannot keep up with these demands, employees will start leaving them behind. And therefore, a strong talent strategy becomes a powerful competitive advantage for those organizations who do it really well. And we've been talking about talent strategy, but one aspect of talent strategy is a talent mobility, which is what we'll focus on for the rest of our time here together today. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Akash.
Yeah, thanks, Cheryl. I wanted to start off by really sharing with this group, the textbook definition of talent mobility. There's numerous definitions if you go and Google it on the web, but really at its core, talent mobility is simply about your organization's ability to understand the skills, experiences, and career aspirations or interests of your people and use that data to help them move into the right roles internally where they can sharpen existing skills or have the ability to develop new skills for your business. And what we've noticed, is it's become a top priority. We can go to the next slide, Cheryl, because there's numerous macroeconomic forces that are taking place. Number one, if you're looking at, research from, Mercer or Gartner or even Gallup, the top cited reason for voluntary turnover is lack of career opportunities within the organization. The second priority that we're seeing is organizations are now reorganizing for what we call more agility, and they're becoming more flatter. Their structures are more team-based, which is very important to be able to quickly identify the skills of your people so that you can really redeploy them into the right projects or roles internally. And then the third really is the overall workforce is changing, right? More professionals these days are constantly wanting to learn new things, try new things, and are aggressive about seeking opportunities. So it's important for your organization to keep that in mind when you're thinking about a talent mobility strategy. But along with that, the organizations who have a great and powerful talent mobility strategy, they do see a strong business case that is behind it. An example I can give you today is, a mid-sized organization with only 10,000 employees. Typically, what we see in the industry is about 6% voluntary turnover. They're spending probably north of $45 million in, turnover and recruiting costs. So the organizations that can capitalize around, showing employees more opportunities and redeploying them into the right roles, you can save a significant amount. And I always get this question in the webinars or organizations that we talk to is, well, Akash, when do we really need to start thinking about our talent mobility strategy? And these are the overall anecdotes that if you're hearing internally within your organization, it might be a good time to start thinking about talent mobility. I would say by far, number one, it's internally, Akash, we're hearing, our employees are struggling to have visibility into new career paths or new opportunities internally. They're stating that in our exit surveys. Or our talent teams are now saying, wow, we have so many opportunities within our business, but because we don't have great data around our employee skills or experience or career aspirations, it's very difficult for us to actually market these opportunities to the right people at the right time. If you go on the learning and development side, learning teams often are saying, we're developing great content or providing great content for our employees, but the utilization isn't quite there yet. And it's primarily because the content maybe that we're providing is not directly linked to what career aspirations or skills our employees are actually interested in developing, right? And then the fourth one typically is our internal job board is great, but it's great at just listing available job openings. There's no career experience beyond applying to a new job, no career pathing, mentorship, or even short-term project or gig work for our people, making it very, very harder for us to show where our people can grow and develop beyond just moving into a new role. So I would say these are the typical anecdotes that if you're hearing within your organization, as we continue on with the presentation, it might really be a good time to evaluate a talent mobility technology or strategy.
Akash, as I'm looking at these challenges that companies are saying that they're facing, It's so often the case. I know in my experience internally, we face this a lot, as well as we want to jump in and solve this challenge. We want to provide opportunities for growth. We want to create visibility. We want to do some learning. But so often we don't start with that structure, that framework, or that taxonomy that hooks it all together. The competency modeling, the job taxonomy. And so we're going to walk through the key elements of a critical strategy, of a talent strategy. And that is one that just really stands out to me. But the very first one is alignment to the organization's strategy and talent strategy. So as we talked about here, at the very beginning, it's key that we take whatever we do on those challenges that Akash was sharing and link it back to the organizational goals and objectives. What is it that we're trying to accomplish here? It's so easy for HR to create these beautiful products, and then we go to deliver them, and the business is, why would I do this? Why would I spend energy? What is it trying to do for me? And we constantly say, the talent strategy and talent practices cannot be a human resource effort. They must be a business effort. The business has to have that value. They have to see how this is going to directly impact their ability to meet their goals and objectives, the numbers, the goals they're trying to hit. What are you going to do for me? What's in it for me? We all know that's that little quip right there, and it fits in with the talent strategy as well. And particularly when you're trying to do something next level, like a specific talent mobility strategy, you've got to have that hook, which requires strong business buy-in and then continual reinforcement of that connection of the strategy to the organization's goals and objectives. Number two, this is my favorite piece of them all. This is a job architecture and skill taxonomy. It is the foundation of every single thing that we do in HR and talent management and organizations as a whole, if I can be so bold as to say that. But definitely creating visibility, flexibility, and mobility, it requires a well-defined and consistent job and skill taxonomy across the organization, not just within finance and not just within marketing, everyone doing their own things. Because if I'm sitting in one department and I want to look at opportunities in another, if there's no consistency in language or job roles or compensation, you're going to create some inequity at worst and confusion at best. So having that consistent taxonomy is going to be very powerful for implementing any talent mobility strategy that you decide to implement, as small or grand scale as it is. And it all begins with understanding your processes. What is it that we're doing within this function, this family, this department? What are the responsibilities that these roles are trying to achieve with that process? And then what are the knowledge, skills, and abilities that they have to achieve for that? And then put it within this consistent framework, using the same language, using the same competencies, using the same vendor and tools, and whatever it is that you're doing, it's got to be consistent across the organization. And when you do that, you are able to support the full employee life cycle from hire to retire. They're able to grow and to develop and not feel stuck because they just learned some skills that they don't know how that translates to another role. It supports organizational design and placement, succession, and workforce planning efforts, and creates synergy in that selection, learning, and development. When Akash was talking about creating training, but not necessarily getting the response we want from that, oftentimes it's because that's not what's on my job description. Those skills don't align with what I'm doing in my role, what I talk to my manager about. I don't see the connection there. So creating that consistency will allow for that synergy, and you're not paying 3 times for something. You're paying for it once, and it's feeding all of these different areas. And that's from internal resources or external. Your internal resources cost you energy and time and money as well. And then it allows the organization to consistently identify skill gaps. What talent do we have? Can this talent take us to the future? Can I pull and bend talent from one area to the next to fill critical needs? Or do I have to go external for this? Give your talent an opportunity to stretch and grow into these roles, and it creates engagement and satisfaction within your pipeline, ultimately creating that sustainability. And it also lends itself to that employee-led development. It allows them to see what they're going after and gives you something to give them visibility to. Without consistency, what are you showing them? You don't really have a place for them to go to. So having that taxonomy allows everyone to be looking at the same thing, singing to the same sheet of music, if you will. So taking a look at another poll question here, let's take a look at this. Does your organization have a defined job and skill taxonomy? Let us know. Ooh, we got one straight over. We're in the process of mapping skills to jobs. That's fantastic. Love to see that. Are they consistently defined across the organization, or maybe consistent within a function? Marketing does a great job. HR does a great job. Finance is doing a great job, but operations maybe not. IT maybe not. We're in the process of mapping skills, or I'm not sure. I see this is common, this second one here. Some functions, they're like, we absolutely need it, and they'll go out and get the resource, or they'll bring someone in to do that, and they'll have a beautiful taxonomy and it'll be wonderful, but it's not connected to anyone else, and that creates some challenges. I see it. Several of you are in the process of mapping skills to jobs. I'm glad to see that that is a priority within your organization, that you see that this needs to be done, because since we don't have so many here on the top of having our skills consistently defined across the organization, we need to see others starting that process so that we can close that gap. And then not sure. I've been in several organizations in the talent management department, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not sure, because it's confusing. Is this an enterprise architecture? Is this a functional architecture? Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna end the poll.
Yeah, let's do it.
Share the results
Sure.
so everybody can see.
Yeah. Y'all couldn't see that as I was talking about them, huh?
No, sorry.
Sorry about that.
All right, you're good.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. I was so animated, I lost an earring. All right, so let's continue with our third key element here, and this is measurement and analysis. For any parents out there, we know that you must inspect what you expect, and this does not stop when you get to the office. If we want to have talent that's growing and developing and increasing in satisfaction, and we want leaders who are implementing a strategy and following up with their teams, we've got to put in some kind of measurement and analysis. We have to look at the data on a consistent basis. Without a taxonomy, without a structure, we don't really know what we're measuring. We're putting things out there and testing how frequently are you measuring this, but we don't have real data pieces to hold on to. So having a taxonomy and having a strategy allows you to define what measures are we going to look at, and how do we create visibility and dashboards and continuous conversation around those metrics. And then finally, I want to lead into technology as a key element of a strong strategy. It serves as an enabler, enabling talent processes and optimizing that strategy. But looking down at the bottom, it can easily become a distraction and become the strategy if we're not carefully monitored. I bought a car many years ago. It had all of the bells and whistles up front. I never once used it. I never played those cool speakers that could just blast classical music in any different variety. I never used my Bluetooth, and it's just something else to break or to accidentally push a button on and mess up, because it didn't fit into how I actually drove my vehicle and how I plan to drive my vehicle. It didn't fit my strategy or my approach, and it became a distraction. So technology is very powerful for meeting the needs of your organization, but it has to be at the level that you know your organization can support it. So I'm going to turn it over to Akash and let you take a look at some of the ways that we're using technology within organizations to really create a powerful talent mobility strategy.
Thanks, Cheryl. I think if we go into the next slide, before I get started, when you're thinking about a talent mobility technology, I always try to remind organizations we partner with, at its core, the value prop has to be aligning the interest of your employees along with your overall organization. What I mean by that is, for the employee, the technology should be really empowering them to freely identify skills and opportunities all across your organization without any friction. And for you as an organization, by allowing that, the technology should be capturing really powerful insights and data around career interest, skill interests of your people so that it can influence your business strategy. So I would say that is something at the macro level you absolutely have to consider when you're looking at a technology. If we move on then, today, if you look at the talent mobility technology landscape, we're seeing, I would say, 5 key pillars that are very, very important in a technology that you bring in. One of them is just the aspect that we'll talk about in a little bit of career pathing or role identification within your organization. The second really is internal mobility, the ability to quickly promote job opportunities to your individual employees. The third is having what we call a short-term gig or project marketplace, where employees can freely pursue stretch assignments to develop new skills. 4 is this idea of a agile a mentor marketplace, where anyone can kind of opt in to be a mentor and organically foster relationships around skill building. And then the 5th pillar of a talent mobility technology is what we call a learning marketplace, where content is freely accessible to your employees based on skills they're interested in, and many times even recommended to them. So that's what I like to say, the 5 pillars. Before I go into the technology, we are today very, very used to personalized experiences in our consumer lives. There's apps that we're using daily in our living rooms, like Netflix, that when you log in, technologies like Netflix are really looking and monitoring at what movies you're looking at or even watching. And over time in their movie catalog, they're promoting you movies that may be interesting for you. Another example could be an organization like Amazon. Anytime you go to Amazon.com and you're buying certain products, they are actually learning about you, and over time promoting you other products that could be interesting for you to purchase. Well, you could take these concepts and technologies and apply it now to career development or talent mobility. So if we move on to the next slide, Cheryl, there's technologies out there now called talent marketplaces, where really it's a fancy way of saying how do you provide a one-stop shop experience to your employees, where they can be promoted different type of career opportunities or skill building opportunities within your organization. And I'm going to talk about each one of the pillars, but the real goal here is, how do you personalize opportunities to your people at exactly the right time, right? So let's go into the first one, career paths. A talent marketplace can have the ability for your individual employees to browse freely all the roles that exist within your business today. And not only browsing them, but it could show them career paths to get there. It could show them the skills that today they have or they've shared versus skills that they actually need to build to get into or move into some of these roles. And some powerful technologies take it one step further and say, for the skill gaps that an employee has on a particular career path they're interested in, here's the development we as an organization are already providing, whether that's learning or mentorship. The second pillar really is internal mobility. And this is, instead of allowing the employee to go to the internal job board and browse job opportunities, talent mobility technology can kind of enhance that experience and say, as available job openings come up that are a good match for an employee, they're already notified internally. The third component is mentorship. And, we heard from a lot of organizations that we partner with, scaling mentorship is difficult. We can, find mentor and mentees and do the pairings in maybe a small function within our business. But when we're thinking about it holistically across our organization, it starts to become very difficult. Well, with Talent Marketplace is now, you can allow anyone within your organization to opt in to be a specific mentor. It could be a skill-based mentor. It could just be for, career mentorship. And organically, as employees are sharing what their skill interests are, they can make connections with colleagues internally. And then the fourth is, this is very new. I would say it's emerged in the last 4 to 5 years, is a concept of a gig or a project marketplace within your organization. So historically, managers may have been looking at freelancers to augment project teams internally. Well, now with talent mobility technology, because you're able to understand the skills and the interests of your employees, you can quickly post an internal project, specify the skills or the scope of work, and the technology can use AI to recommend who internally could be a good fit, and also notify those folks. And then finally, the fifth pillar is learning, right? If you have a robust LMS or content that you are providing to employees, why not start personalizing that content to the right employee based on their skills and their interests? So this is what I like to say, a very robust talent marketplace or talent mobility technology. But what Cheryl was talking about earlier is, talent mobility technology is only as good as the data that is fed inside it. And the core of it is having that job architecture and skill taxonomy built. You can use technology. If we just go back one slide, you can use technology today, though, where it can look at all the jobs or job titles that you have in your business, and the AI can actually help suggest you specific skills that you may want to be considering for your job roles. And that same taxonomy that you're building now can be very, very useful for a couple different things. If we go to the next slide, it could be used for tagging all of your learning content. Once you have that job architecture and skill taxonomy built, you could use talent mobility and the AI behind it to look at all your learning content and make sure it's mapped to the right skills. You could also encourage your employees to be using the same skill taxonomy when they're building their profiles. And over time, as learning content is being available, they're going to be recommended specifically on learning they're interested in and where they're, and if it's based on career paths that they've already specified. So very, very powerful once you've built that skill taxonomy and job title architecture. With that skill taxonomy, with talent mobility technology, you're actually able to foster a lot of internal connections. You could build what we like to call skill communities with technology now, and quickly people can figure out who can help with a particular skill within my organization, who's interested in also developing this skill, so that maybe L&D teams can provide the right learning or training programs internally. And then finally, all of this data that is being captured within the platform or the technology becomes very, very robust for you as an organization. You are able to, at a macro level, be able to see what are the top skills you have within your business across different functions or job titles. But more importantly, you can go granular and you could look at it even at a team level and empower your managers to start seeing, hey, within my team, what is the skill coverage I have? What are the core areas that maybe I should be providing my team learning or upskilling opportunities so that I have the right coverage for the type of work that we're doing. So not only will you be able to have access at the macro level of your organization, but you can even empower it down to your manager and team level. So super valuable insights.
And before we go on, Akash, I just going through and listening to this, it sounds so amazing. And I hope if you weren't sold before about the importance of that alignment with the strategy and getting sponsorship and buy-in from leadership, looking at what the possibilities are with a piece of technology that offers a lot of the solutions like this, is that if your leadership is not bought in and you're now putting jobs in front of talent across the company, and those leaders are like, why are you poaching my talent? Why are you encouraging them to look for jobs across the company? You may say, we weren't ready for that. We need a process to prepare our leaders to really develop in that space, to remember that one of our key roles is to develop talent and keep them in here and understand the value of that lattice as opposed to people moving out. So it really is part of this larger strategy that you want to put in place to make sure that it fits with where you're going and where your organization is right now. So I just want to make that additional plug to make that connection for you. That's why we started there. Okay. Got another poll for you. So when you look at this technology, what would you say excites you the most? When you were looking at it, where did your eyes get big and say, whoa, that's really cool? Things like that is what we need. I would love to have that as an employee. Select all that apply. Unless it's just multiple choice.
No, they can select as many as they want.
Okay, good. We didn't actually talk about that. Okay, great.
No, that's good. That's good. So we'll just give it like another 15 seconds and then we'll end the poll and then we can share the results and you can go over them. Good.
Okay. Sure. It looks like they've stopped. Oh.
No.
All right. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that. So it looks like number one is this encouraging learning with personalized recommendations, that connection to the learning organization, which is so powerful and such an important part. Understanding where skills gaps and skills and gaps exist within teams, really understanding your organization better. And then number three would be connecting employees with internal skills communities. That was a new one to me as we've been growing. And the strategy piece is how often these communities of practice or ERGs and groups like that, but for skills and starting to develop those, that's a powerful use. And then saving time by automating the mapping of job titles. We got to be practical in there at some point, huh? All righty.
I think I wanted to jump back in here. I think, the biggest thing, even with looking at all the features and the bells and whistles of the talent mobility technology I just shared, at its core, regardless of who you partner with or the type of strategy that you choose, I think the message that I definitely want to reemphasize for this audience is it's really about creating a win-win situation. For your employees, talent mobility is about creating optionality. It's about creating empowerment so that they can really navigate and can own their career within your organization. They should be able to, look at opportunities freely, understand the skill requirements, and then have the right enablement or structure to help them move there. If you do that well for your people, the technology, the power of the technology is the data that you as a business get. You're able to create an agile environment within your organization. You'll be able to see what skill gaps you have in different departments, teams across your business, and it can influence your competitive strategy, right? Moving forward. So really think about talent mobility as a win-win, and again, aligning the interests of your employees to your organization.
And I can't help but notice that this is also the perfect balance for employee engagement as well. A little win-win on both sides. Yeah. Right. Well, that rounds out our topic and our talking points for today. Do we have any questions or anything we can you want to talk about in the last few minutes that we have left? Kim, do we have any questions in the poll?
I do. I have a couple of questions that came through. If you have any questions, we do have about 5 minutes left. So if you want to drop them in as we're going over, and I'm asking our presenters. I have a question from Maria, and she wants to know, should the company be aligned around, like, throughout the regions with their talent strategy? I believe that is the question.
Yeah, that is a fun one. most commonly what I've seen is there is an overarching organizational alignment. So this is how we as a company want to promote movement throughout our organization. And we want to get all of our leaders on board. But sometimes that's really hard for various regions if you're talking geographic countries, or if you're talking regions within the US, that would be a lot easier to get everyone on board. But so often our systems and our resources don't necessarily align really well in very far geographic regions and great distances. So in that case, your strategy may fluctuate a little bit based on culture and the realities of the various regions that you're in. But when we're talking about a more tight-knit regional area, most commonly US based or country specific based regions would have a very, very similar strategy. Once we start expanding out of that, I would say keep it as consistent as you can, at least at that higher level. You've got to have that leadership buy-in, but very often leadership allows regional leadership to own that strategy because they're the ones managing it. They're the ones making it happen. And you've got to have that buy-in. And so often that's just really hard to get across so many various locations. But an overarching goal for your value proposition, that's going to be important.
Great. Here's a question. Can you implement a talent mobility technology without having a career and skill framework? So who would like to take that one?
I can jump in on that one, Kim. I absolutely not. The power of talent mobility technology is all about having that job architecture and skill framework in place. And the reason for that is without really mapping your job roles and mapping the skill requirements for that, you're not really giving a clear picture to your employees around what opportunities really exist and what they should be expecting when they're thinking about their learning and development program. So you could have the fanciest technology like I was showing earlier, but if the core framework behind that isn't built out, it's very misleading and you will suffer with, adoption over time.
Great. I have a question here from Megan. Recommended technologies for a company searching for ways to link employee skills, learning, routes for internal mobility / career paths.
There's, I can take that one too. There's numerous vendors out there. I kind of bucket it into like 3 categories. Some of the larger HRIS vendors are starting to provide technologies or modules around talent mobility or talent marketplaces. We over at Bridge also have a very powerful technology around learning and performance that is mapping to skills, career pathing, and talent mobility. And then, there are niche vendors that are looking at it from maybe a learning angle or like an LMS platform or even a recruiting technology that might have some components of it.
Okay, I think this question I really want to ask before we end today is, how important is leadership buy-in when bringing in a talent mobility?
Leadership buy-in is everything from a change management standpoint to implementation. Without that leader buy-in, that support from the top, rolling out how important it is, leading by example, having these conversations with their leadership who says this is important, and I am now going to have that conversation with my team, and supporting the efforts behind the strategy. It's doomed to fail. You will be pushing and pushing and pushing, and then just keep coming up against blocks. My leadership didn't say I had to do it. My leadership's not supporting me. That's not a priority for us. So why would I do it? We're all going to do what we know is going to help us succeed in our role. If I'm not seeing the connection through my leadership pipeline, I'm not going to be spending any energy on that, and it will just fall apart because it won't have the user and the engagement that it needs to be successful.
I just wanted to add one more point to that, Cheryl. From a technology perspective, we have seen organizations just very quickly embrace and bring a talent mobility technology. But if their leadership, specifically the C-suite, is not really bought in, we have seen organizations do a survey after the technology has been implemented, and employees in the survey are saying, if my leadership is not bought in, Why should I spend time, creating my profile and thinking about these opportunities? Because at the end of the day, I'm not going to be getting the results that I'm thinking about. So in any of this topics that we talked about, the talent strategy or talent mobility technology, the leadership absolutely needs to be bought in, and send a message that we as an organization are really embracing talent mobility.
Great. Okay, one final question. We are at the end of our show, but what type of companies have you seen the best success in implementing this philosophy? Any answers for that?
I can take it. I can take a stab, and then maybe Cheryl, you can follow on. Right now, over the last couple of years, I would say organizations that are really embracing talent mobility, specifically on the technology side, are the organizations that are going through a lot of disruption. So financial services organizations we've heavily partnered with, because just the changing landscape of finance and technology. And, the second real big one is technology as a whole. Technology organizations are constantly in influx with disruption. So they really do need to understand the skills of their people and how quickly they can move and be more agile. And then some slower organizations that are starting to think about this are in the healthcare and the pharma space. They are starting to really think through how to realign teams and have rigid and strong job architectures and skill taxonomies. So that's what we're seeing so far.
And to piggyback on that, I would say those organizations that have tried to do it without a taxonomy, without a strategy, and have failed and just spin their wheels, they're like, we're finally ready. I see why I need this, where sometimes you think I could do it without it. And they push forward and they're not feeling the pain yet. And those are some of those items that you're going to see in the follow-up handout that we have that says, what are those, when is it time to consider my strategy? What are the types of questions I'll be asking myself? What are the challenges that we're facing? Those are the organizations that tend to be most successful in my experience, because they are ready. They are bought in, and leadership is like, I'm done wasting money and time and resources on this. I want to get it right this time.
And I just shared that as well, a link in the chat for you to download our little resource that we are providing for you that Akash and Cheryl put together on how to start the conversation. Also, you'll see their contact information. We are past the time, so I so appreciate everybody who joined us today and stayed on. I will be sending out an email directly from me with a copy of the deck and our recording for today, as well as a link to this resource for you to download. Akash and Cheryl, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. You guys did a wonderful job. And I want to thank everyone for attending today and for spending your time with us. Be sure to go to our website and check out our upcoming webinars. And I hope to see you all here again. And with that, I wish you all a wonderful rest of your day, and hopefully it will be productive and successful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
This webinar was brought to you by GP Strategies. Together, we help organizations transform through their people. You can access more webinars or download additional resources by visiting the GP Strategies Resource Library. The link is on your screen and in the description.